Anna, it's a pleasure to meet you here online. My name is Santiago Schnell. I'm the Dean of the College of Science at the University of Notre Dame. And, I'm very pleased to talk to you because you recently received the Barry Award from the American Academy of Sciences and Letters, which is a great honor. And, I have just a few questions that I'm curious to see what your perspectives are. So the first one is that, what do you see as one or two of the most important challenges right now for maintaining a high intellectual standard in your academic field?
Yeah, this is a great question. My answer may come unexpected for someone like you who is from STEM. And I think the biggest challenge we face is an injection of postmodern thought. In STEM, we were quite unprepared for this subversion of our field by philosophy. So, as we know, science has become successful when and where the Enlightenment principles were developed and adopted. And practicing scientists like you and me, we operate by these principles without thinking about them. Many would even struggle to articulate them, but any good scientist would recognize them as true. So what are these principles? The objective reality exists and therefore can be studied. Trivial, right? The truth exists and can be discovered and understood. Claims to truth are open to scrutiny, and only those that withstand the scrutiny are accepted by the reality-based community of scientists. No one has the last word. All claims are open to scrutiny and by everyone. And the biggest of this principle is knowledge is power. Knowledge is a good thing and we should strive to attain it. Knowledge is good for humanity. Now, we see alarming cries of postmodern nonsense that directly contradicts these principles. What do they say? They say those in power control knowledge. Power controls knowledge and knowledge is used to perpetuate power. They say there is no objective truth, only multiple narratives. They say claims to truth are to be evaluated based on the identity of the scientist. So it sounds like silly gibberish, and we could just have a good laugh at it. But unfortunately, these ideas are now implemented in concrete practices and policies. And these practices undermine scientific enterprise and undermine standards. These practices are presented to public under umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. The connection of DEI to the postmodern and Marxist thought may be obscure, but if you dig into it, it becomes very transparent. To give you an example how this postmodern thought undermines standards, consider science communication. Very important. Now science communication, in my opinion, is compromised. I would even say subverted by DEI. Publishing houses, at least in chemistry and physics, declare their commitment to DEI. Royal Society of Chemistry pledged to reach an arbitrary gender quota in editorial and reviewer pools. American Chemical Society issued a statement that diversity of authors will be used as a metric of evaluating the performance of editor-in-chief. Authors are now routinely asked to suggest reviewers of their papers based on their race, gender, and country of origin. There is even call to citation justice, that is to deliberately cite more underrepresented minorities instead of simply citing papers which are relevant to a matter at hand. So in a similar fashion, DI replaces or dilutes merit in hiring and grant applications. So funding, research funding, is especially concerning to me. Competitive merit-based funding is the bedrock of modern science. And US funding agencies were quite good at it. Proposals were judged by the merit of the ideas, the track record of the PI, and by alignment with agency mission. For example, for DOE, that would be energy. For NIH, human health. For NASA, space. Now, however, the PIs must include DEI plans in addition to technical proposal. And in these DEI plans, they must explain how their research will advance DEI goals, such as proportional representation and outcomes among various identity groups. So this introducing of DEI plans into the evaluation of scientific proposals obviously dilutes criterion of intellectual merit. It creates fertile ground for corruption and social engineering. Which proposal should be given the priority for funding by DOE? The one demonstrating genuine promise in advancing solar energy research, or the one promising to involve more female students? Which one do you take? How do you weigh one against the other? Should NIH fund the best ideas in cancer research, or the best plans for achieving higher representation of LGBTQ+ researchers? We know from history of totalitarian regimes that such subjugation of science to ideology does not lead to good outcomes. Same applies to hiring. I do not need to repeat these concerns, but you see how dangerous this infusion of ideology and DEI is to maintaining standards and maintaining excellence in research and education.
Thank you. So that's a very interesting perspective. And this is probably a follow-up question that comes from your comments. Then how would you describe what the mission of the university ought to be, and then what is important for a university?
Yeah, John Haidt, whom you know, he spoken on these issues quite eloquently, and I will just repeat what he says because I cannot say it better. He says that truth-seeking is a telos of a university. Very simple, and I agree with that. So what does it mean? What does truth-seeking means? It comprises knowledge production through research and knowledge propagation through teaching. If we accept this principle as our guiding light, our polar star, the rest will follow. Making decisions on policies, investments, appointments, hiring, recruitment becomes very simple. Unfortunately, universities are not following this principle. Universities now devote themselves to many other pursuits. Money making through tuition, athletics, and recently, all kinds of social justice, including DEI. So it's all right to include some of these things. I do not think they should be forbidden, but they should be subordinated to the main goal. So if we decide on things like, policies, allocation of resources, we should use this truth-seeking as a razor. We can call it hike razor. For example, does hiring astronomically paid football coach improves our chances to find truth and to advance research? Yes or no? Are legacy admissions good for solving scientific puzzle? Yes or no? Same applies for sustainability, racial and gender quotas, DEI. Does dropping 40 million on DEI help us in our truth-seeking enterprise? Yes or no? So unfortunately, this is not universally accepted. And you see, for example, if you look at UC website, you will find all kinds of platitudes, including statement about our unifying values. Turns out UC has unifying values. So what are they? It's quite interesting. Truth-seeking is not mentioned in unifying values. What is mentioned is integrity. Well, that's okay. It's kind of obvious. Cheating is bad. Excellence, that's good. Then it's getting worse. DEI. So DEI is purported to be our unifying values of our university. Well-being. Now, how this is even relevant? We are not a hospital or some mental institution. open communication, accountability. So you get the idea. So I argue that we do not need this mixture of platitudes, legalism, virtue signaling, political statements, and nursery rules. If we accept that the telos of a great university is a truth-seeking, that's it. This determines what we do and what we don't do. And a great university doesn't need anything else. No culture journeys, no unifying values, just commitment to the main goal.
Thank you. Well, and if after hearing your answers, some people might think that it's very negative. So about what's going on in the university. So and now I have a follow-up question. What do you think universities are doing well right now in balancing the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake? We decide to make knowledge more useful to the world so they can make an impact. And where do you think in the future universities need to improve in different areas?
Yeah, I definitely do not want to come up as too negative, because the reason I point out to concerning issue, because I see how some excellent things that universities are doing are undermined by this. So, but yeah, American universities are still very strong and delivering good science. Now, we know that science is essential for humankind to thrive. We know that, right? We know that science is the foundation of technologies that deliver food, energy, medicine. So we benefit now, you and me, our friends, children, and parents, from scientific progress that improved human conditions worldwide, including higher standards of living, lengthened lifespans, eradication of deadly diseases and famine. So science is doing it, and the reason science can deliver it is because there is good science done in American universities, among other places, and that there are smart people dedicated to science, and they deliver transformative research. Now, what is important to remember is that if you look at the history of science or current state of science, it's very easy to see that transformative advances, these great things that we benefit from, they come from fundamental curiosity-driven research. And that was one of the strengths of American universities, that curiosity-driven research was cultivated and supported. To give an example, here are questions. How nuclear spins interact with magnetic spins? Does it have any direct implications? When people asked this question, they didn't know. They didn't have this in mind. But this research was supported, and now we have MRI and GPS and all wonderful technologies. Another question. What exactly makes jellyfish glow? You could love this question as a silly, but it was an example of curiosity-driven research that led to breakthroughs, and now we have these amazing tools in bioimaging, when you can really see what happens in live cells in real time and in live animals, including humans even. So we have the bioimaging revolution, we have photodynamic therapies, and so on. So, and it all comes from universities and from fundamental research funded by taxpayers in US and in other countries. So, and we must continue to support this type of research. So this is really important. So where we are with it now, US science is still pretty good and strong, but I do see some worrisome signs that take us, in my opinion, in the wrong direction, and I think we need to be aware of them. So we see that administrators at universities and funding agencies are increasingly taking a role of managers of research, or in plain English, telling scientists what to do, what to study and what not to study. We see the growth, explosion, I would say, of all sorts of initiatives supported by separate pots of money. can hear, big initiative on sustainability, on quantum information science, on AI. So these are not bad applications, these are good goals, but we should be very careful not to put immediate goal of achieving immediate outcome before the principles of fundamental research. So I think we should maintain this focus on fundamental curiosity-driven research and understand that great technological advances will come out of it even if we do not put them in our plans beforehand.
Thank you. That's a very interesting perspective. The fact that we have to look at the purity of the knowledge and knowledge for its sakes, and applications might appear in the future. So you never know where you're going to make the future discoveries that will make an impact.
Yeah, we do not know. And I think it's very arrogant to assume that, a bunch of bureaucrats advised by a committee of scientists terrified by their prospects of losing funding will somehow identify these new moonshots, they call them, or holy grails problems or grand challenges, It's just arrogant.
Yes, it is. Well, and I know that you have expressed a lot of controversial ideas here, and maybe some people are going to be interested in learning more about those. I understand that you wrote an article about these ideas, where people can find it so that they can read it further and learn your perspective.
It's ironic, yeah. It's actually, some people made fun extensively about it. So we wrote a paper with what you would consider a mundane title, In Defense of Meritocracy in Science, where we make very simple statements of the type that I mentioned today, but going a little bit deeper. So, and we couldn't find a place for this paper easily. We tried different venues, and ultimately the paper was published in the Journal of Controversial Ideas. So there is such a journal which entertains really controversial ideas, but merit apparently falls into the same category. So I find it's quite disturbing that some basic principles of enlightenment, meritocracy, liberalism, classical liberalism are classified as controversial and need defense. So, but yeah, so Journal of Controversial Ideas. About publishing, we published a paper in European Review documenting this corruption of publishing and what is actually happening in publishing houses, which is in the open. We didn't have to send some undercover agents. It's all on the journal website. So the same applies to funding. You can look what is happening in funding, and you do not need to do any detective work. Just sit and read what are requirements for submitting proposals to these agencies, and it's scary.
Well, thank you. So I think this has been a very interesting conversation. So the Journal of Controversial Ideas, I think people should read the article and learn more about these ideas that you have exposed today. And well, let me just congratulate you again for receiving the Barry Award. It's a major achievement. And well, it was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much.